Okay, sorry about that. I ran out of space on my iPad, so I had to delete some stuff. Basically, this book is somewhat available online, and it's pretty great. Yeah, it's like pins, needles, probably. This is an axe head. Awls, right? Yeah. Right. So basically, whenever we needed to know what things looked like, we would take a look into this book because there's a bunch of them from different cultures. And yeah, oh. So that was a good one. This one, Scythian and Thracian Antiquities, basically the same as the Frozen Tombs. Not easy to open. Basically, I think it's a catalog for an exhibition. Again, color photographs. This is an okay one. You can get it for a couple pounds on eBay. So this one was a bit more expensive, and it's in French, which I also can't read. So, again, this one is for looking at pretty pictures and trying to get some understanding through Google Translate. But again, loads of very good photographs of things, and this one has just such a volume of artifacts, you know. All the golden stuff, all the bronze stuff, like this tiger. Yeah, this is a good one, but also a bit pricey. I would definitely use this one. I remember using this one, and a bunch of these. Again, griffin. Yeah, and a bunch of stags. So that's a good one. So these two. This one is very hard to get, and it wasn't that useful because Glorantha has its own religion that's kind of set in stone, not terribly so, but the main point of this book, kind of, is that the Scythians didn't really worship the sun so much, and that the deer wasn't the solar symbol. So we didn't use this one a lot. But another book by this author, which is Esther Jacobson Tepfer, and her The Hunter, the Stag, and the Mother of Animals, is fantastic because it has a bunch of standing stones, or deer stones. It's basically a catalog, it is a study of rock art from Asia. And this is where I've stopped reading. Anyway, petroglyphs, basically. And we used a bunch of this stuff, especially, if I remember correctly, somewhere from the beginning, this kind of stuff. These, is it Khakashia? I don't know. These standing stones we used as inspiration, this one especially, for various standing stones in high-lying villages, and the Clan Hall. The big pillars in the Clan Hall are inspired by this, as well as Göbekli Tepe, which I will talk about in the written bit. Anyway, this is a really awesome book, but I haven't finished it yet. Yeah, you have the positive tattoos. It's really dry, as academic books tend to be. But if you want to look at rock art and petroglyphs and so on, this is great. Okay, so that was that. So next, I have a bunch of books about Scytho-Siberian cultures, sort of generally, and ancient cultures. When I was looking for cultural details and sort of facts. So this one is a Czech edition of a Russian book, Scythians by A.P. Smirnov, which it was written sometime in the past, but yeah, it's 1980 edition, and it's basically Soviet archaeology. So there's a whole lot of Soviet propaganda, which is kind of funny parsing now, but, and again, this bit with the curly bit that we actually used, yeah. But this one was mainly useful for the cultural details. You know, if you wanted to know, did Scythians have kilns? Did they have individual kilns, everyone sort of one per household, or was there one kiln for a whole village? Well, I looked into in this book. Next one is great. This is a good book that I recommend you read just by itself. Elizabeth Wayland Barber, Women's Work. It's great if you want to know something about weaving, which we did, and various other female-related types of work. And there aren't any pictures, or many anyway, but it's really cool just learning about what women used to do and how and why women did it and men didn't do it, or if both men and women did it, why it was mostly women, and so on. Really cool book. Similarly to that one, I have Warrior Women by Janine Davis Kimball. Janine Davis Kimball sometimes gets a sort of sketchy reputation that I've heard of, but I'm not sure why. It is a lovely book that is mostly a memoir of her experiences from digs in Russia and so on, but also has a bunch of cultural details, and it focuses, surprisingly, on Amazons, or what she called warrior women, which was kind of relevant for us, so that's a good one. This one is sort of tangential. Warfare in Ancient India by Uma Prasad Prasad, maybe? Tlapliao. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. This one is sort of, I was just reading that anyway, because I was interested in it, and I found some interesting details about Indian chariotry. So when designing the charioteers in the game, we used a few of these details and cultural facts, like the fact that in India, chariots were also used, when fighting on chariots, they were also handy because you could use them to transport your wounded warriors to safety quicker than just carrying them. So there's a little bit of that in the charioteer tactics, I think, in the artificial intelligence in the game. So that's a sort of not that related. Anyway, this one is freaking fantastic. It's The Nard Sagas by, what's his first name? Jason? Nard Sagas from the Caucasus by John Colarusso. There are several editions of this book, and there are sagas not just by Circassians, Abazas, Abkhaz, and Ubiks, but some other sort of native cultures from that area, from the Caucasus, that you can get, and I just recommend this one. It's by the Princeton University Press, and it's great. They're basically heroic sagas like, Greek mythology and Roman mythology that we're all used to, but it's very, very different. The Caucasians have a very weird culture that's kind of relatable. There are some things that seem anyway universal to humans, but also the characters in these often react completely differently than Greek heroes would, for instance, or Russian heroes. We didn't use this one as much as I would like to, because there is a lot of really cool stuff, but sort of looking at a culture of many clans herding horses and cows and riding horses, and sort of the constant raids and warfare, and living in sort of confined valleys, sort of on edge, and the blood feuds and so on, that influenced everything I tried to infuse into the Highlander culture. It didn't do much, but there were a few bits that I've used. Definitely, if you like mythology, I am not sure I would recommend this particular one. If you can get like an abbreviated version, that might be better, because there are, I don't know if I can show that, but some of them are in verse. And basically, it has that thing where there's one story in many versions, because he sort of notes down every version from every tribe, or like every nationality, and they're very similar with some differences. So you can just skip those, but it is really interesting if you're into that stuff. Nard Sagas of the Caucasus by Colarusso, really good. So this one we used a little bit. This is another Soviet, I guess, anthropologist. Siberian shamans and their oral tradition. As you would expect, this is about shamanism, the Siberian kind. And again, it does the same thing that the Nard Sagas do, where there are many versions of a very similar, if not identical, tale. And that can get a bit tiresome, but it's also kind of fun, because the shamans in these are dicks, man. Like, there are several tales about shamans just being pissed at people and making their clothes disappear, just for no reason. Like, someone comes to a shaman, "Shaman, will you help me?" And they make their clothing disappear. Shamans are dicks. Okay, so this one is a fairly recent one, I think 2015 or something, by Adrian Mayer, who you may know as a sort of popular author in the archaeology sphere. It's sort of popular history. I think this one is the most useful as a collection of material. It's written kind of repetitively, but again, it has some nice material visually. But most importantly, she collects the scientific evidence that I would have to go look for with regards to how many female warriors do we have evidence for in burials in various cultures. Well, this many. It was this percentage, and they had, how many of them had defensive wounds or sort of battle wounds? Well, this many. It has that kind of info, and that was kind of useful. We were thinking about, how are we going to talk about female warriors in the game? Because, well, the Orlanthi, they kind of had female warriors as Vingans and Babistar cultists and so on, but among the Hylarings, just women fight because it's necessary, right? We are a culture that needs warriors, and it doesn't really matter if you can draw a bow and ride a horse. It doesn't really matter. So we kind of had information for that. The Amazons by Adrian Mayer, and it's kind of a good read. I think she repeats herself a lot, and there are some things that are her opinion, and she presents them sort of like fact, but overall it's a good book. Okay, so the last few, my arms are killing me. Okay, so this one, The Mummies of Urumqi, I think it's pronounced. Another one by Wayland Barber, who's a great writer that I like. She did women's work. And this one is about the mummies found in the Tarim Basin in West China, who were probably Indo-European. People say Tokharian, but that's incorrect, or not accurate, anyway. Loads of cool pictures of, like, this guy. He has colorful socks. David was sort of apprehensive, I think, about like knee-high socks, but they existed. Again, textiles. We wanted some material, or I wanted some materials on textiles, ancient textiles. And these are from the appropriate area, sort of, kind of. And these are actually Bronze Age. Not sure if these exact ones, but I think this one that's a baby mummy. Sorry, that might be a bit drastic. Sorry about that. Also, information on weaving, you have looms. That's also useful. This is a cool book. Oh, the witches. The witches of Subeshi. Near Turfan. Yeah. They had these, there are mummies who had these super tall hats, who were dubbed the witches because they had tall hats. And I like that. I also like her fur coat, which I used in some illustrations. This one is nice, and you can also get it fairly cheap on eBay. So these ones... Oh, another one. This one is by two leading guys on sort of Indo-Europeans near China and so on, Mallory and Mayer. And the Terra Mummies, this is the latest book on the subject, I think. And again, it's awesome, but kind of less relevant. Didn't use a lot of this one, mostly the textile again. So these ones, excuse me if I huff too much. Okay. These are amazing. The history of Central Asia, the age of the steppe warriors. Just look at that chariot, right? This is from the Persian, I think, treasure. Anyway, these are great books that David actually recommended. And they're like coffee table books. And they have absolutely amazing photographs of everything from landscape to skulls. Okay. Let's move. Cave paintings. More petroglyphs. Okay. Right, this is a city, I think. Yeah, Bactria and so on. Bactria margiana. These were pre-nomadic settlers there, or may have been there since the Stone Age. Right, look at that. Tell me that's not awesome. Okay, I'm gonna kneel a bit and try to... Sorry about that. Okay, so that is an axe head with a two-headed vulture man and a griffin and a wild boar. Yes, dog. What do you want? The dog wants something. Okay, so basically this is a massive book full of great pictures and some interesting info as well. This is one of the Bronze Age mummies, Beauty of Lolan. Actually, when we were deciding on how the Hylorings were going to look like, yes, Dougie, yes, I found a reconstruction of what she would have looked like, and she just looked like a lady. We were trying for sort of a more exotic, not exotic, but like not European, sort of, or average American look. And she just looked like a normal person that I would bump into. So we had to experiment a bit more with the look of the Hylorings. Oh, this is a cool one. This is one of the cemeteries. But again, not everything was used because like this is in the desert and there are like phalluses. We couldn't put that in an iOS game, right? These are cool, these wooden guardians, but I don't think we use those anyway. Here, this is cool. That is the exact same stone, I think. Yeah, Khakashia, that I pointed out before. Yeah, so we use this quite extensively. And interestingly, just randomly, I chanced upon it, but this kind of petroglyph stylized depictions of things, we use these for the look of spirits. Well, we had to figure out what spirits are going to look like. So we used a style similar to this. Yeah. This thing is very interesting. This is the settlement in Arkham, not Arkham, Arkham, which is a Bronze Age settlement, and it was interesting because it almost looked like a spiral, and it wasn't, and it was a settlement of a charioteer culture, but we used this kind of spiral town, fortified town, for some of the Vinkotling settlements in the game, or the Orlanthe settlements in the game. Yeah. So, I don't want this to be half an hour. It nearly is, but these are very good books, but also kind of expensive. So, oh, I love these. This is the Kargali Diadem. Yep. This is a sort of Central West Asian style and make, but it depicts Chinese immortals. This is completely irrelevant to 6 Ages. I just love this artifact. Anyway, this is one that looks like this. This is the early age, and there is another one that looks like this, the Age of the Silk Roads, which is also awesome. And we also used some bits from here, but mostly from the previous one. And that's about it. I mean, this video is super long, sorry about that. These are not all the books that I have on this topic, but they're the ones that I thought were kind of relevant or that I remembered using specifically, so it was a few. If you got here, thank you. That was a long video and I don't speak very well, so I imagine there's going to be a lot of ums and ahs and a lot of and so on. Sorry about that. Enjoy 6 Ages. It's coming out tomorrow. So, yay. Yay. Bye.